Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying with us here on SABC News. The war in Ukraine and trade are expected to top the agenda when South African President Cyril Ramaphosa holds talks with U.S. President Joe Biden in Washington later today. It will be Ramaphosa's first visit to the White House and the first time that a South African president has been there since 2014. We're now joined via Zoom by Professor Christopher Isike to weigh in on President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to the United States, where he will be meeting with the Vice President, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, and then later on the U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House. A very good afternoon to you, Prof. Isike. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
You're most welcome, sir. The war in Ukraine and trade expected to top the agenda. Let me focus on the war in Ukraine. I mean, the fact that we are still here, we are still talking Russia, Ukraine. When it comes to South Africa, has South Africa not, made it clear over this time, throughout the time, sort of where it stands? I mean, on several occasions, we've heard, the president saying this is where we stand with regards to Russia, Ukraine. It seems that there is a push to have South Africa pick a side, and obviously we know which side that is at this time.
Well, yes, it is not out of place to expect President Ramaphosa and Biden to discuss Russia's war in Ukraine, and of course South Africa's stated neutrality in terms of and its sympathies for Russia. But like you said, this has been stated severally, and this was also restated by Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor when the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken visited South Africa in August. But we will expect that President Ramaphosa will emphasize South Africa's preference for multilateralism and dialogue as a means of resolving this war, as well as other global challenges, including the urgent need to stimulate economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. So all of those will be on the table. I expect that President Ramaphosa will be very emphatic about South Africa's stance. Yeah.
Do you think, though, as much as you say that President Ramaphosa might be emphatic about South African stance, that there will come a point where South Africa is put in a corner and having to ultimately make a decision and not being able to say that they remain neutral? And on the back of that, what does that actually then mean for South Africa, especially given the fact that I think, are we not still part of BRICS? Are we not at this point still trying to, and I think in that neutrality, trying to actually not upset any of those parties? What does that mean for South Africa as part of BRICS?
Well, look, the thrust of the new U.S.-Africa policy is, what they call equal partnership. The U.S. has reiterated that it recognizes and supports Africa's, declared or demonstrated agency and ability to decide, for itself, contribute toward, solving world's problems, and also that includes, deciding who to partner with and who to relate with, right? So I do not think that there will be any attempts to try and force South Africa, to take sides, recognizing South Africa's own foreign policy, and of course, like you mentioned, its position in the BRICS, which makes it, very difficult for it to take a side in this particular conflict. South Africa's foreign policy, rooted in Ubuntu, reflects a multilateralism, like I said earlier, and that is for renewed or heightened talks and dialogue to try and resolve the conflict rather than taking sides in terms of who is right or wrong.
Yeah. And interestingly, you say that, I understand that the U.S. is eager to hear South Africa's perspective on how to reach a conclusion on this particular conflict and means to achieve that. And the first thing that came to me was, what can South Africa contribute to this conversation? We haven't necessarily been in those sort of conflicts. I mean, how strong is our army even to begin with? Why is it so important to hear South Africa's perspective on how to handle this conflict? What have we got to offer on that topic?
Well, South Africa is an important, state in Africa. It's a gateway state to the continent, and the continent is, as increasingly demonstrated that it is a willing contributor to, building and creating global norms to make the world a better place. South Africa is also a very important strategic partner of the United States, with long historical connections between them that have expanded since 1994. So it is not a country that the U.S. takes lightly because of its vested interest in the country and in the continent as a whole. South Africa, being a non-entrepreneur in this regard, being a soft power in the continent, and also it's given its role in BRICS, has an opportunity to be able to relate to both sides and bring both sides, join, of course, with other countries of the world to try and talk about a peaceful, negotiated solution, rather than going to war, which is not something that South Africa, by its foreign policy, favors, whether it's in favor of the United States or in favor of Russia, or even China for that matter. So I think that South Africa has demonstrated to the world that it is a peacemaker. It is a country that values respect for human rights, and it is in this regard that we think South Africa has a role to play in terms of bringing both countries together, because Russia and the US both value South Africa as important, political and economic as well as cultural partners.
Yeah. Prof, I'm going to ask you to stay with me, but we're going to go to some live visuals then. At the moment, I do understand that President Cyril Ramaphosa has in fact arrived where he is to meet with US Vice President Kamala Harris. I think you can also just talk with me while I do talk over these particular visuals that are coming from Washington, D.C. Of course, President Ramaphosa said to be scheduled to have a breakfast meeting of sorts with the US President Kamala Harris. Can I ask the team to put up those visuals at this time, please? Those live visuals coming from the US. President Ramaphosa will also meet with congressional leaders and the veterans of the civil rights movement who helped in lobbying the American public against apartheid and are still loyal to the cause of anti-racism in both the United States as well as in South Africa. So, of course, the US Vice President Kamala Harris set to receive the president at this time. I thought it was meant to be at the White House. This does not look like the White House to me. I think it will be at the residence of the Vice President in Washington, D.C. And I think they will then be led to the White House, where there will be a full meeting, including the Vice President as well as President Joe Biden at the White House. So at the moment, this is set to be the breakfast meeting. I had understood that as those gates are open at this time, that President Cyril Ramaphosa is set to arrive anytime. I want to bring you in, Prof. I mean, let's talk about, we've been focusing a lot on the Russia-Ukraine war, but importantly, let's talk about the importance of this particular visit for President Ramaphosa, the first of his visit to the White House. How important is it as we await his arrival there at the residence of the Vice President?
Well, it is an important visit, like you had mentioned earlier. It's his first visit to the White House, and the first since 2014 of any South African president to the U.S. So South Africa, like I said before, is a strategic partner of the U.S. with strong collaborations in areas of health, education, environment, and the digital economy. The U.S. is South Africa's third largest, trading partner. With 600 United States companies, operating in South Africa. These are issues that are important. But beyond all of these, South Africa and the US also have similar historical challenges around, the national questions of equity, social justice, and social cohesion as nation states. And you referenced just now the visit to the Congress to discuss with veterans of the civil rights movement who were instrumental in lobbying the American public against apartheid. This is important, for South Africa to do. So together, the racialized parts of both countries have consequences for their present-day context, as reflected in, structural and manifest disparities for Black South Africans in South Africa, and of course, African Americans, Native Americans, and other minorities in the United States. So this is an important point to note about South Africa-US relations.
Yeah. And I mean, as we wait for the president then to arrive, I mean, at this point, I mean, is there anything that could make the relationship between South Africa and America, tense somewhat, given the fact that, as you've said, South Africa will continue to push on the fact that they are going to remain neutral when it comes to Russia, Ukraine. I would imagine that this visit and, being received in the U.S. as President Cyril Ramaphosa is being at the moment, that they do expect some sort of leeway in terms of being able to negotiate with him, or in fact persuade him perhaps to take some sort of a stance. I know that we've spoken about the fact that this is really about what South Africa's stance is on the issue. But in fact, let me just pause at the moment. The president of our country, South Africa, has now arrived at the residence. As you saw, the vehicle there with the two flags, the US flag as well as the South African flag there. That is the vehicle, I believe, with President Cyril Ramaphosa. As we see on the steps there, US Vice President Kamala Harris stepping out of her residence there to indeed receive President Cyril Ramaphosa. So certainly for this, what we've been told is a breakfast meeting with the president. All right, let's listen into some of what is being said at the time. Let's put up the volume, and we ask the team indeed to put up the volume so we can possibly hear what is happening at this time.
Wait. Sorry, back please. Sorry, on the grass, everyone.
Remember, if you're not stopping here. We're stopping here. We're stopping here. We're stopping here. This is it.
Mr. President, welcome to the Naval Observatory. It is an honor to welcome you, and I know that you have a full day of very important discussions with the President, and we will have an important discussion about many issues, but I do want to thank you for the leadership that you have provided for the continent of Africa and, of course, in South Africa. The relationship between the United States and South Africa is a very important one for many reasons, including the leadership that together we have provided on issues such as global health, on the issue of security, and of course the challenges that we each face with the climate crisis and the work that we will do together to address that crisis. So I welcome you today. I thank you for your leadership, and I cannot emphasize enough how important the relationship between our countries is to the people of the United States, both in terms of our security and our prosperity. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for welcoming me, Madam Vice President. I'm really pleased to be starting my visit to the United States with you. And the visit really is about strengthening the relationship between South Africa and the United States, but also to express our gratitude to the United States in relation to the support the U.S. has given during the COVID challenges. We received considerable support as a continent and as South Africa. And as South Africa, we continued to get support on health matters from the United States, for which we are grateful. And I'm really here also to discuss a number of issues with you: the empowerment of women, human rights for women on our continent, and of course health matters, how we can strengthen health infrastructure on our continent, and of course security matters as well, where we believe the United States can play a key role as the continent faces a number of challenges at the security level. So it's a real wonderful opportunity for you to be here with you and to visit you. Thank you so much.
Well, I look forward to our day together, so thank you very much.
Thank you
And
so
thank you to the President.
What was your reaction to the losses of the ride yesterday?
Thank you.
All right, the time now in Washington, D.C. is 9:28 a.m., if you were wondering. So certainly that breakfast meeting set to get underway at any time then at this time as they enter the residence then of U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, President Cyril Ramaphosa arriving there. South Africa's Minister of International Relations, in fact, Dr. Naledi Pandor briefed the media earlier on this week here in South Africa regarding President Cyril Ramaphosa's upcoming visit to Washington and New York in the U.S. Let me bring you right back then, Prof. Isike. I mean, I was talking about the fact that, as you can see, he's been very warmly received there by U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris. And one wonders, if there may be some sticking issues, when it comes to their conversations and discussions over breakfast. I think she said just briefly there as she was speaking to the media that they'll certainly be talking about environmental issues. And I wonder if the issue of Russia-Ukraine will be more handled by President Joe Biden, as I suppose that's more of a pressing issue for them at the moment in the U.S. But I wonder still if, there could be some issues that cause a sort of a sticky point when it comes to South Africa and U.S. relations.
Well, I don't think there will be. I don't think there will be any sticky points. I think we are also reading too much to, the South Africa's position in Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine war. It is not the only. It would be a subject of discussion, of course, but this is not the reason for President Ramaphosa going to the White House, and it is not the only a subject of discussion of common interest to both countries. There are other more important, more relevant, more mutually beneficial points of discussion, that both countries will talk about. And like you said, the relationship between both countries is quite important, is solid, and it's actually quite friendly, irrespective of the outcome of the South African stance in terms of Russia's war in Ukraine. So I would rather focus on other more important issues of discussion, like I said, in terms of the economy, in terms of trade, in terms of climate change. They have shared priorities in health, infrastructure, and trade and investment. So these are issues that will be on the table, and those are the things I think we would focus on more squarely.
All right, Prof, thanks very much for weighing in and certainly staying with us as, of course, we viewed those live visuals coming from Washington, D.C. As President Cyril Ramaphosa is meeting with the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. That is Professor Christopher Isike there, weighing in really on, of course, the president's visit to the U.S. He's an international relations analyst. We'll certainly keep you updated.